My name is Dylan Borland, a former 1N1 geospatial intelligence specialist for the United States Air Force in an active duty enlisted capacity from 2010 to 2013. I'm a federal whistleblower, having testified to both the ICIG and ARROW with direct firsthand knowledge of and experience with crafting technologies that are not ours and are reportedly operating without congressional oversight. Because of my direct knowledge of the reality of certain legacy UAP programs, my professional career was deliberately obstructed. During the summer of 2012, my team was on standby for weather and I returned to my barracks on base, and at approximately 0130, I saw an approximately 100-foot equilateral triangle take off from near the NASA hangar on the base.
And they counted between 35 and 40 infant and juvenile Bigfoot prints.
They kept getting run off at night by these big balls of light, these globe balls of light that would basically chase them out if they were there too late. And then one night he was there late, everybody else had left, and he could hear something walking around the dig area, and he could hear something following him. There were enormous wolf tracks that had followed him down. And what's really strange to begin with is there were no wolves back in the 70s, 80s. I mean, even now they're really rare in southern Utah. This wolf had followed him down to his car. It turned and started out through the sagebrush into the desert, and they followed it. It transformed into a barefoot human track and continued on to the desert.
What I can tell you right now is you're telling me things that you can't find on YouTube or you can't find on any books. You have to be a researcher in the field to know certain things that are not out there, and you're hitting all the things that are not out there. I can tell you right now, you're not crazy. And she goes, yeah, you're legit a generational abductee.
In the middle of the woods at the moment.
Yes, sir. I'm familiar with the area. What was that, sir?
That's not human! That's not human!
Sir, are you okay, sir?
There's something in the back of my truck!
My name is Jeffrey Nusatelli. I'm a former military police officer with 16 years of active duty service in the U.S. Air Force. I'm here today because the American people have both the right and the responsibility to know the truth about unidentified aerial phenomenon. Between 2003 and 2005, 5 UAP incidents occurred at Vandenberg Air Force Base. The incursions began on October 14, 2003, when Boeing contractors reported a massive glowing red square silently hovering over 2 missile defense sites. After several minutes, it drifted further east onto the base and vanished over the hills. When I arrived on scene, I talked to 5 shaken witnesses who described a massive triangular craft larger than a football field that hovered silently for about 45 seconds over their entry control point before shooting away at impossible speed.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Verbal Echo podcast. Tonight I have a special guest, Kevin Killen. He's the author of the book Ghosts and Me. Pretty excited to have this conversation. So welcome to the show, Kevin.
What got me, I think, as an author, I grew up in a writing family. My father was a journalist, so I think it was kind of natural. And my mother was a secretary for a long time, so I think writing's always been in my blood. And as far as the paranormal goes, I had my first experience when I was about 5 years old, living in Evanston, Illinois, with footsteps and nothing being there that should have been, but there were definitely footsteps. And I've been intrigued and following the paranormal ever since.
Oh, yeah. So you were pretty young. You were about 5?
Yes.
Awesome. And so do you want to just tell me about your first experience?
Sure, absolutely. So we lived in a really big house in Evanston, Illinois. One of the turn of the century. By that, I mean the 1900s, turn of the century. So it was a really big, really old house. I lived there in the early 70s. So it was probably it was close to 100 years old. But, it as a small child, everything looks big anyway. But this place had passageways and attics and just anything a kid could get into. So my father, as I mentioned before, was a journalist, and he took my 3 brothers to St. Louis on this particular night to cover a basketball game of some sort. And it was just me and my mother. And the downstairs, we had a foyer area, and we kind of right off of that by the staircase was the kitchen living room. And we were sitting down to eat, and we distinctly heard walking upstairs above us. It was footfalls, heavy enough that we could actually hear it. And I turned to my mother and I said, "Who's upstairs?" Because we both knew that nobody was here. And my mother turned to me and she said, "Oh, that's my little boy." And I didn't understand that response because the only little boy I knew of was me. But later on, it kind of played itself out, and I found out kind of why she said what she did. But she said that she thought somebody had broken in, and she was really scared. And if that had happened, she wanted to make sure that we were both safe. But yeah, I distinctly remember that. As I relay the story, I can still hear the footsteps on the wooden floor above me, and that was my first experience.
Yeah, that's really strange when you're little and you don't really know what to think about what that might be. I always ask about everyone, why do you think children are able to see these things?
I think basically because as children, we're not affected yet by the world. So their minds are not shaped as of yet. So it's just kind of they're wide open. So they haven't had a chance to have it, bombarded with things in the real world. Oh, that's not real. That's fake. That doesn't happen. That's in your imagination. So children being innocent and wide-eyed, so to speak, I think that's what really attracts them.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And then, so that was one. When was the next experience that you had? And I do thank you for sending me the book. That was really cool to get it. I started to read it, but of course I just got it a couple of days ago, so I didn't have a chance to read through the whole book. But I read through the first couple chapters. And so it looks like your family moved around quite a bit.
Yes.
So do you think that you had things following you, or do you think you just encountered them at new places, or you were just open to it, or how did that work?
Yeah, I think that I don't believe they followed us. I think I was just open to it. And again, and I mentioned this in my book, I believe one of the reasons that I'm so receptive to this is because I have Celtic blood in me, because I'm almost 100% Irish. So I think that's really what attracts it, because I know the Celtic people have the sight and this and that, and I've read up extensively on things like that. And I think that's one reason, like I said, because my mother had something, but we never really delved into it before she passed. And I really wish I had, because I think she knew a lot of stuff that she had a lot of premonitions and precognition ability, but we never delved into it and talked about it. And before she passed, my father, not so much. And if he did, he really never said anything. But I think that's really one of the reasons that happened. But yeah, I just think that I was really receptive, and I've been called a ghost magnet, because it seems everywhere I go, I do have experiences. And I just think that it's just something that's just part of me.
Yeah. Do you think you had experiences in every house or certain ones? Did you notice any similarities?
No, I think I've had experiences in every house I've lived in.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I've had a lot of experiences in my houses that I've lived into, even as a kid. I think I think it starts when you're little, and then whether you're receptive to it or not, and you open up to it, and then you're like, oh, what is this? What is all this stuff happening? Yeah, I agree with you on a lot of that stuff. So, and I also read that so your family was from the Philippines.
Yes.
Was
My father worked as a journalist over there. My mother worked for the government. So I was actually born over there. My oldest brother was born in Malaysia, and my middle brother was born in Washington, D.C. And I had another brother that was born in India. So yeah, they were in over Southeast Asia for a long time before we came to the United States.
Do you think there's any tie to the Philippines? Do they have a lot of different, unique history over there?
Yeah, that's one thing I actually never really thought about, but I guess I should have. Yeah, Southeast Asia and the Philippines definitely have, for what I've read, they have a lot of folklore dealing with certain things like ghosts and demons and witches and things like that. And I distinctly remember as a child my mother telling me, and apparently this is wrong, and I've been trying to figure this out, but my mother used to say to quiet us down, the Mau Mau is going to get you, and basically that was like some spirit from the Philippines that supposedly came out of the walls, and they would come get little kids. So she would tell us this to calm us down. But I've had some Filipino friends, and they don't remember that. So I don't think the Mau Mau is the real it's another type of spirit, but for some reason the word Mau Mau is stuck in my head and I can't figure out what the real term is. But yeah, they've got a lot of history of paranormal activity in the Philippines.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think every country probably has their own folklore. It's good that you mentioned that. Yeah, really interesting. Well, and you mentioned Ireland too. Ireland. Oh, yeah, I've heard a lot of stories. I've seen some books out there that just dive into Ireland, like even when you get into like the Fae and the fairy people, and they have so much culture around that. I wouldn't be surprised. A lot of familial ties to that kind of just hang on with you as you move through life.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the one thing that I've always said, and it's weird because when I tell people this, they're like, "Yeah, you must be crazy." Apparently, the prominent families such as the Kennedys have banshees. Apparently, my family wasn't prominent enough because I never had a banshee, and I've always said that, and people are like, "What? You're crazy for saying that." But yeah, apparently that's a lot of prominent families that are over here now that came from Ireland. They do hear the banshee, and that obviously is a harbinger of death. So
yeah, that's interesting. I've heard of that. So do you have a full description of what that is, a banshee? I think we've all heard that, but I mean, what exactly is it?
well, from what I've been told, there's a couple of different versions of what the banshee is, and I think the most popular one is it's a woman, excuse me, that killed her child in the river, drowned her child. I guess she was depressed or whatever, so she ended up killing her child. So she was so depressed she ended up killing herself, and then she turned into a wailing woman, and she supposedly comes to you, or you hear the banshees cry, and that's supposed to signal somebody in your family is going to die.
Wow, that's interesting and kind of creepy.
Yes,
Definitely creepy. Yeah. So, I briefly saw in your book that you had some experience with EVPs. Can you
Yes.
talk to that and explain that?
Sure, absolutely. For the younger people in the audience, and I do this a lot. Back in the day, and I mean in the early '90s, I used to have a dual cassette boombox that actually played physical tapes. So, and I know a lot of people, and I've talked to people, they're like, they're literally like, what is that? So I've actually had to explain that to people because they don't understand what I'm talking about because, a lot of the younger people, I don't think have those anymore, obviously. But anyway, so I had one of these and I had been having some experiences in the house in Falls Church, Virginia, where I grew up. And one day, and again, I had a lot of friends that would come and go. and my family had a lot of friends. So it was like Grand Central Station in that house a lot. And it was wasn't a lot of peace and quiet. But this particular night, everyone was gone, and it was weird. And I was like, hey, you know what? Hey, I'm going to try and capture an EVP. So I went ahead and popped the tape in and hit play and record. And I said, hey, if there's anything here, please show me. And then I went to a friend's house for about an hour and a half, and I came back and the tape had run through. So I played the tape back, and it was really nothing until the very last, I'd say, minute to minute and a half. First of all, it sounded like somebody had been drumming on top of the tape recorder, which I don't know where that came from, because again, there was nobody in that house. And then there was some weird bleeps and blips. I don't know what that came from either. But then at the very last 10 seconds of the tape, this voice came on in a very slow motion, methodical voice, and said, ha ha, I have shown you. And of course, that scared the hell out of me. And I felt like literally fell out of my chair, ran out of the house because I was scared. So I was like, oh my God, this thing, whatever this was, talked to me. And it was and I don't want to say it was demonic, but it was in kind of that really deep, guttural, slow tone. And that's what it said, haha, I have shown you. And that was my first EVP. And of course, everyone in my family thought I was crazy. And my poor friend, who was a good Catholic, thought I was on drugs when I went over there and told him, because I scared him because I was like really excited and talking and everything. But that really, I've never had an explanation to this day who or what that was, but that really kind of kicked the door down for me as far as the paranormal. And I've just been in the paranormal a lot ever since.
Yeah. Did you do any kind of audio editing with your tapes later? You mentioned that was a physical tape. Like you're talking about like an old boombox, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Many people.
Yeah. Well,
I remember those.
Yeah. Unfortunately, what tends to happen with those things is they tend to get caught up in the little magnetic part. And my tape got eaten, of course. So I didn't have any proof, and I couldn't play it for anybody else. And then I learned later on, as I was doing some research, that every once in a while the spirits will do that just to mess with you. I'm not saying that they did that on this particular occasion. This was an older radio, but that is a frequent thing that they will do, is they will actually mess with your tape so you can't show anybody. I don't know why that is, but there has been instances of that. And maybe that was what it was. But yeah, the tape got eaten. I wasn't able to play it for anyone.
Of course. How convenient, right?
Exactly.
Well, and I mean, maybe young people don't remember this, but those old tapes, they were junk anyway. They would just get eaten by the machine all the time. And then you remember when you used to stick the pencil in to rewind?
Yes.
You're talking about
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay, yeah. Gen X, we remember that. Where you stick the pencil in and you start turning it and it's like spread out all over your car, and you want to listen to the music.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
I
got
remember
caught
that.
in your car stereo. You had to take it all out, and it would get jammed in there and wrapped around. It was just a whole mess.
Oh gosh. And yeah. Now we just stream everything from our phone, and magically it goes over the air to wherever we want it to go. It just seems like magic to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the young people today don't understand what a hardship we had growing up.
And the paper maps we have to unfold with the highlighters. We're gonna go over here to this town, and we get and we gotta get the Sharpie and the highlighter,
right.
And we gotta write down the directions.
Yeah, we didn't have GPS back then.
Nope. Good thing is we know how to use a paper map now, though.
This is true. I don't know how to fold one up, but I can read one.
Right? They never fold up the same way. Never. I gave one to my kids one time, and they just looked at me like, "What? Why?"
Yeah, exactly.
What if the satellite goes down? I mean, so yeah. Oh, we're dating ourselves here, but
yeah,
the good times. But yeah, so that's really interesting about the EVPs. And so did you continue doing this with other places, trying to get EVPs? Now, of course, we have like digital things and different ways of gathering evidence.
Yeah, I continued later on. I moved to Pennsylvania to go to school shortly after that EVP incident. And the part of Pennsylvania, I lived in Southwest Pennsylvania, which is about 50 miles south of Pittsburgh. Very old area, very haunted area. And it's interesting because I found a YouTube video from a a paranormal team that's from West Virginia that actually went and did an investigation in two of the places that are in my book. So I thought that was kind of cool because I was like, oh, I did that a couple years ago, and here they are on YouTube doing the same thing. And I was like, yeah, you guys are going to get something, and it's the same thing that I already wrote about. So that was actually kind of cool. But so yeah, and I lived in a house there that was I had a roommate. It was an older house. It wasn't that old. I'd say maybe 30, 40 years old. But we would always have these weird incidences, never together, but separately. Like when we were alone, we'd have instances of where we'd hear footsteps, we'd hear doors close, we'd hear the cabinets rattling, toilets flushing, water turning on, and it was just us in this house. And this was a ranch house, and it wasn't very large. So one day we were sitting on the couch on a Sunday, and I turned to him and I told my roommate, I said, hey, do you ever hear weird stuff going on in this house when I'm not here? And you could just see the color drain from his face. And he was like, oh my God, what have you heard? And we compared notes for like half an hour, and we all heard the same stuff. And he was like, Kevin, man, I didn't know how to approach you because I was so scared and I thought I was going crazy, but I hear all these things too. And we finally went ahead and compared notes, like I said, and we all were having the same instances of hearing things. And we all thought it was just, we tried to play it off. But I had a friend who was a psychic who came in and basically said that the spirit in the house was the former owner. He was just hanging around to make sure we were going to take care of his house. He had no harm for us. He just wanted to make sure we were going to take care of his house, and he just wanted to let us know he was there. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, we had the same experiences and at the house when we weren't together. So I always thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting. I think I would. I guess this goes into my next question, is because when you were saying Pennsylvania is very haunted, and then you kind of figured out with this house that it was a former owner, and that's kind of like an intelligent thing. So if you were to kind of classify the different types of hauntings, so obviously like poltergeist, sounds like you had some of that. Historical, right, which might go into like your haunted battlefields and and like history and that sort of thing. That's kind of cool. I'm really we can circle back to that because I'm really interested in haunted battlefields. And versus like intelligent, where you're having this interaction like the one that you just mentioned, where there's no harm. This guy's just like, he just wants to make sure that you're taking care of his property because maybe he lived there for a really long time and he took a lot of pride in it, So if that's not proof of the afterlife, I don't know what is. But are there any that I'm missing, like classifications?
No, I think you pretty much covered them all. And like I said, I think, and again, I know a lot of people are kind of, incredulous when they would either talk to me or read my book, but I've had like pretty much almost every experience you can imagine I've had. And I don't know why, quite honestly, but yeah, I've had all of those experiences you just mentioned.
Yeah. It's definitely a lot. I mean, it sounds like you've had a lot of experiences where you could actually put a book together. How many do you think you've had? How many total?
Total experiences?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Definitely in the hundreds, easily. Mm-hmm. And I still have them. I had one the other day. So I have them all the time. Mm-hmm. It never it like never ends. They ebb and flow, but I still have them, and they range. They're different now because it's almost like an evolution. Because I had a sleep paralysis instance about 2 months ago, and I know that there's like that old hag theory. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
And that's basically what they try to say is that people who have the sleep paralysis, where you literally cannot move, they see an old woman sitting on their chest. Well, I didn't see the old woman, but I couldn't move, and it freaked me out. And I was actually talking to a friend of mine who was wondering if I had an alien visitor, and I had not even thought of that. And he was like, Kevin, you may have had that could have been an alien. And I said, dude, I didn't even think of that. But yeah, and that was the first time I had the sleep paralysis, and it really scared me for a couple of weeks. I was really shaken up because I literally could not move, just like like they said, you do not move.
Yeah. Was it right when you were in the deep of sleep, or was it morning or evening, or what like?
It was early morning, and I had just like woken up.
Yeah, that's
So
pretty strange.
I came out of sleep and I was on my back, and I like literally I could move my head, but the rest of my body would not move. And I just remember thinking, like, being really scared, like, what the hell's going on here? I cannot move. What's going on? And I was getting really scared because I was like, oh my God, I'm paralyzed. And then, like, a few seconds later, I was able to move, but I literally could not move anything with my head.
Yeah, it's crazy. Which house do you think was the most active?
It's a good question. I would have to say, let me think about this. I don't really know because I've had so many experiences that actually had different things go on that it was kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I could like classify that as far as one over the other.
Yeah, or maybe a different question might be, which state do you think was most active? Because you've lived so many different places.
Yeah. I would say Pennsylvania and Virginia have to be one and 1A.
All East Coast, old places.
Yes.
Do you think there was a trend toward, or did it matter if the age of the home or the history around it or the town?
Yeah, the one thing I'm actually finding out a lot more, and it's interesting because I look at a couple of really good, what I think are really good investigators on, and they have YouTube channels. What they're beginning to find is it's not the people, it's the home, it's the land. And a lot of the hauntings has to do with the land. And that's one thing that I've actually thought about, thinking back to a lot of my experiences, that a lot of these places were really old. Like I said, when I lived in Falls Church, that place has been around since the 1600s. And then I was like literally miles from Washington, D.C. So that had its own weird feel to it and all its own ghosts and everything. But yeah, a lot of the land, I think, holds a lot of energy. And that can call, and again, some of these spirits are like, thousands of years old. They were there long before any man was here. So these things are really old. So a lot of these haunted, especially one of the most haunted states that usually occurs with the land has to be Ohio. I've heard a lot of things coming out of Ohio with the Native Americans.
Yeah, you didn't. Oh, yeah. It's so interesting that you mentioned that because I was just sitting here scribbling First Nations people, and I'm reading this book on giants and the mound builders and how the First Nations people actually came in after the mounds were already built and kind of repurposed them for their own burials. And so they've done all these investigations, back to the 1800s. And they're finding these burials, but they're even further below where the First Nations people, basically they said, oh, hey, look, this is already partly built. Let's just use this, so who knows? But yeah, I think you're right with the history, that they might just be really old. Yeah. Way before us Europeans came in and stomped all over everything and made a mess.
Exactly.
Well, and that might be a good segue for this haunted battlefield that I want to talk about. I've always been fascinated about this. And obviously this isn't like thousands and thousands of years old, but the historical site of major battles like, during the American Revolutionary War or Civil War. And a lot of these places have become so energetic that they're prone to hauntings. Do you have any experience with those?
Yes. Actually, I had a really great experience with a haunted battlefield in Winchester, Virginia, when I lived out there. I lived fairly close to, oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of the fort. But anyway, it was a fort something battlefield, and I lived fairly close to that. And for the history buffs out there, Winchester was one of the most haunted places I've ever lived in because the history was just amazing. And like you said, it goes from the Revolutionary War through Civil War and all the way up until now. But I had a lot of experiences with the Civil War part of it. But anyway, so me and my girlfriend at the time, I think it was a July or August night. It was really stuffy. And at the time I used to smoke. I don't smoke anymore. So that's a good thing. So we went outside for a cigarette like 2, 3 in the morning, and we were hearing somebody playing Dixie on the fiddle. If you're familiar with the song Dixie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So we kept hearing that. And I was like, who the hell is playing Dixie at 3 o'clock in the morning? And of course, we looked around and we lived in a subdivision at the time. And of course, there was no lights on, there was nobody there. But it was just the strains of somebody playing Dixie. And
Nobody plays
okay,
Dixie anymore.
Right. Absolutely. So I was like, this is weird. And at the time, I was working as a reporter for a local newspaper. So I actually had a lot of contacts with the historical society and such. So I actually went the next day and talked to some friends of mine. And I said, hey, does anybody around here, play Dixie or whatever? They have a lot of reenactments out there, but it wasn't reenactment time. It was, totally different. And they were like, no, not really. And I said, why? And I told them what was going on. And they were like, that's weird. But you do happen to live near this battlefield. So I started thinking, I said, wow, I wonder if that's what that was. And then not only was that, we actually heard what sounded like mortar fire.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely. Is that near the Winchester Mystery House? I can't remember what state that's in.
No, Winchester Mysteries in California.
Oh, okay, that's right. That place is really,
yes, that is
really
that is a bucket list for me.
And
Winchester, the Myrtles Plantation, and Salem, Massachusetts are three of the top bucket lists for me.
I've been to Salem. I went there. It's been a while back. You even, and we went. Oh my gosh, I went down to the historical cemetery. Walked around through the town. There's so much energy there. It's like heavy. It's I don't know. It's very strange. You can just feel that discomfort, I think is what I would describe it as. I also went into Nathaniel Hawthorne's house.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, it was really cool. I always thought it was really interesting that the staircases are just so narrow and the steps are like, it's weird. You almost trip over yourself when you're walking up those really old staircases because they built their staircases differently. They're narrower and the steps are shorter. And so it's just, and everything's so dark. Like the dark stain, and it's just dark, so yeah, went into an old church down there. It was a pretty cool trip, but yeah.
Did you go to the museum?
Yeah, I went to, there was a bunch of different museums in Salem. I can't remember which ones I went to. But
you go to the Salem Witch Museum? You go to that one?
I think that's the one I went to. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
super creepy.
That's the one I want to go to. Yeah.
Super creepy. Yeah. Pretty heavy energy for sure. But yeah, bucket list on that one for sure. But yeah, the Winchester Mystery House, and there's what was the other one you mentioned?
Myrtle's Plantation in Louisiana.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
With Chloe the ghost. Who's been photographed.
I went to the one in Jamaica, the Rose Hall.
Yes, Rose Hall. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, wow. That one was really cool. I dragged it was Rose Hall, Rose Plantation. I dragged my.
Who was the? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. What is the name? He's the famous. Is he an actor or something who used to own that?
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank.
I am too, because I see, because that was like the whole thing. He was tied to this, and then that's why like all that. But anyway, continue because
that one was really cool, and I was excited to go to that one, and I dragged my daughters there, and they were not pleased. That was not on their bucket list, but they were happy to go along because it was something that I wanted to do. But they would. I think they would have rather stayed at the beach.
Yeah, I guess.
But that was on my bucket list. That one was really cool. But yeah, that one was really interesting, Rose Hall, because it's just absolutely a beautiful, gorgeous property, and and they have it, of course they have like the little museum where you can, they've got lots of pictures of things that they've captured. And the tour guides were just really nice and very gracious. And just the history of that one. But that one really wasn't too heavy energy. There was a little bit of weirdness there, but not really too much. But it was just a really cool place to go. Yeah. Highly recommend that one.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of these shows that actually went and did investigations there, and they didn't really capture too much, but the place looked beautiful. And plus, it's Jamaica,
Oh,
and I'm
it's so right. Yeah, it was beautiful. It was so worth it. Just the trip alone, right? Yeah, so yeah, it's really interesting, some of these properties that get investigated. And do you follow any of the shows? Did you get any inspiration from some of the shows? Do you think they're kind of cheesy? Like, what's your opinion on this? They used to be really popular, and they're not so much popular anymore, I don't think.
Yeah. Okay. So one, I'm not going to say the name because you'll know who it is. He's the one with the museum in Vegas.
Yeah.
Okay. So I liked him because he kind of kicked the door open for paranormal investigation, but the way that his format of his show is, it makes it look like you capture stuff every 5 seconds, and that is not how these things work. The spirits let you know when they want to talk to you, not quick editing. So I was really disappointed in how that show evolved or devolved, I should say, because I really liked it in the beginning. And there's a couple other ones. And while we're on that subject, and this is one thing I touched on, I'm actually writing a part 2 to my book now. So that's actually one of the things I touch upon is, are you aware? Have you ever gone to a Paracon?
I've gone to Phenomicon, but not Paracon.
Okay. Okay. Well, you see, they have a ton of them all over the country. And my biggest thing is that a lot of these ones, they always have every year in the same place, they have the same people. And if you look at the people who they bring in, it's always the same ones that have been on a TV show. And my thing with that is, I understand you're trying to bring in people to make money and this and that. But what happens, and I've actually had an argument with a woman who tried to tell me so-and-so knows more because they were on a TV show, and it about blew my mind. And I had to really put this lady in her place because I was like, lady, I've lived with this. I wrote a book, and you're going to tell me they know more about me because you saw them at 8 o'clock on a Friday. Are you kidding me? So anyway, I had to do that. But the thing is that I understand, but this is my thing, is there's so many great people in this field that do paranormal stuff. But like you said, I think a lot of it is waning. And a lot of the good ones, there's a lot of good YouTube channels now that actually, in my opinion, are better than some of the shows that used to be on. And again, that's like my thing, is the fact that it's like, you can have so-and-so over here, and then they'll be at this Paracon and that. And again, look, I'm all for being a capitalist and making money. I get that. But it just seems to me it's always the same people, and it just bothers me. And I've heard some really bad things about some of these places, like, because it's to the point now where some of these people they show up when they want to. They're not even prepared. And I've had people tell me they had an awful experience. And I was like, well, that's not very professional. But that's kind of my thing on that, is just there's a lot. And I think a lot of this is overdone because of the Hollywood element. And that's a shame, because again, there are a lot of people, I think, that in this field are really good, but they don't get enough recognition because they weren't on this show here, or they weren't on that show, and this and that. But it's a shame that they do that, because I really can't tell you. I really don't watch the shows that are still on. Mostly, like I said, I go to the YouTube channel that I follow a couple of them that, in my opinion, are the real deal, and they're really good at what they do, and they're not phony, and I'll follow those.
I'm glad you mentioned YouTube, because I was just thinking the same thing. There's quite a few, and I'm sure many that I have not heard of, that do some pretty good production and a lot of really good recording, and they're gathering evidence, and they're really showing what's going on. And I'll have to agree with you on the editing. I mean, these guys were going into a property for a weekend, and you can imagine there's probably at least 25 hours of tape or something. And then to edit it down to a 1-hour show or a 30-minute show or whatever it is, 45 minutes, whatever, that's a lot of nothing. And I agree with you. They do make it seem like it's happening all the time. Like, oh, we're getting something immediately, and that, yeah. I mean, I know they have to edit it for video, and I get that. But I guess the lesson might be that it's not as easy as it looks.
Right, absolutely. Like I said, that's the one thing. And I've been on investigations where I spent all night and got nothing, literally nothing. And that's to be expected because, again, I've learned the hard way that, the spirits will let you know when they want to talk to you. You're not the other way around. And that's one thing I really can't stand on some of these shows is when they provoke. You don't need, I mean, what if someone came into your house and started screaming? How would you act?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, like the provoking.
Yes.
That was going to be my next question. What techniques do you use? Do you just come in respectfully?
Yes.
With a kind of a process of curiosity.
Yes, mostly it's respectful, very respectful, and I thank them when I do leave. Thank you for your time, and again, I keep in mind that these people were human at one time, so it would be like if I went into a stranger's home, to say please and thank you, and show some hospitality because again, we're on their property and things like that, and I think they really like that because again, I can't stand it when people start doing the provoking thing because it's just like, again, what if somebody came to your house and started screaming? I'd throw a brick at you too. I mean,
lumber. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I try to be respectful as I can. And, that's another thing too, is I have it's not really a superstition. It's again, more respect is that I like to go to the cemeteries and record. And I've gotten some great stuff in cemeteries. And I've seen some of these videos where these people are tramping all over these people's graves and it drives me nuts. No respect, just stepping on the grave. It's like they're right below you.
Yeah.
Stay away go to the side. Don't step on, and then they just don't care. And it's aggravating because it's like,
right.
But I try to do that too as well. But yeah, I've gotten some really good responses from cemeteries in the daytime. And that's another thing too, is that I think a lot of people think it has to be 3 o'clock in the morning. No, I've gotten great stuff at 11 o'clock in the morning.
So that whole lockdown overnight doesn't really, you can do it in the middle of the day.
Absolutely. At least I could. And I've had other people tell me the same thing. So it's not, and again, it's just, I think because of the quiet, the spirits like the quiet time and maybe they can gather more energy during that time, but also it's busy. And my thing is that I think that spirits are around us all the time. So, you're at work, you got spirits running around. I'm at home, I got spirits running around, which I already know I do. But yeah, so I think they're always around us. And it's just, they have more energy at certain times of the day or night to be able to manifest. And I think that's what happens. But yeah, I've had great responses at any time of the day. It doesn't have to be, like I said, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. Maybe timing might be relevant to something that is like a historical thing that repeats at a certain time of the day. Have you seen any of that?
Yes, actually. And that goes into the whole stone tape theory. Are you familiar with that?
I am. Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually firmly believe that. And that goes back to the tape. And it was really funny because I was a communications major in college for a while. So I used to be a DJ, and we had the bulk. I don't know if you're familiar with bulk erasers and the cart machines.
Bulk erasers? What are you talking about? A recording thing or what?
Yeah. So basically what a cart machine, it's basically a big tape that's a continuous loop. And what they do is the bulk eraser is a big magnet and it just takes the ions off and it clears your tape.
Oh, okay. I know what you're saying.
Yeah. So being, and I thought that was funny because I was like, that's the stone tape theory, is that if we really truly have a magnetic field around the earth, that's how that happens. Like you can see Roman soldiers in the middle of Chicago because of that. And it actually makes sense to me, having been a DJ and learning about bulk erasing and tape recording and the ions and everything recorded on the metallic tape machine. And it all made sense. So yeah, I'm a big proponent of the stone tape theory. I don't think it's really happened to me much. Most of the things that have happened to me, I think, are actually intelligent.
Yeah, I like that theory. It makes a lot of sense. I have heard about that on some shows and recordings and people I've watched, but it kind of makes a lot of sense, and you're using like the geomagnetic part of, the ability of the earth, or like running water. They've talked about like different kinds of geology that attracts certain things.
Yes.
Yeah. That's fascinating because it's very It's all about the earth, right? I mean, we're just on this big rock, and who knows?
Yeah, I think quartz and limestone are supposed to be really good for spirit activity.
Quartz and limestone. That's interesting. What about the Estes method? Have you used that before?
I have not. It's interesting, and that's another thing too. Is I'm glad you brought that up, Monica, because I'm, and I guess maybe it's because I have not used these before, and I'm kind of like very old school. I have a magnetic tape recorder that I just one of the digital recorders. That's really all I use when I do an investigation. I don't have all the other equipment, but the Estes method is really interesting because I'm kind of on the fence with spirit boxes because I think you can get good stuff, but I think a lot of it is not even that. I think a lot of it is picking up airwaves, radio waves, when it's actually not a spirit talking to me. That, and for some reason, I really can't make out a lot of words on the spirit box. And maybe it's just that my hearing is not in tune with that. So I really don't know. But I mean, I've heard some great things with the Estes method. I've seen a lot of, like I said, going back to the people on YouTube, I've seen some really great things. I would love to try it someday. But yeah, I'm kind of on the fence.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I was actually at the Nebraska Bigfoot conference this past weekend, and one of the presenters was talking about using the Estes method for cryptozoology. And we had quite a few presentations about the woo side of Bigfoot, and it was pretty interesting listening to them. They were using it in the field and getting responses. I don't know. It's pretty in the woo side, but it was pretty cool to hear about different, them being open and trying something different.
Right.
And I suppose we should explain what the Estes method is, if in case someone is listening and they're like, what are they talking about? So you have one person who has headphones on, noise canceling headphones, and you cannot hear. That person cannot hear, but they are writing down their, I guess, psychic information that they're getting. And then the other person is actually communicating with a supposed spirit. Is that right? I think that's...
Yeah, actually, like I said, with some of these, like the ones that I've seen lately, is they're using the people that wear the headphones they have a spirit box.
Oh, okay.
So the other person is asking questions, and then the spirit's supposed to come through the spirit box and talk to them, and they repeat what they hear.
Right, that makes sense. Oh, yeah, you're right. That's the other part of it. Yeah, so there's no contamination. It's like you're just taking out the possibility of suggestion or auto-suggestion, I think is
right.
The thing, where this is supposedly like a more clear understanding of the person who's doing the interpreting, like, oh, I did actually hear the word hello, okay, I'm going to say that. Yeah. It's pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and there's a lot of methods that are used that, again, I'm still on the fence about. I love the fact that there's people out there making different devices. I've actually, when I was, again, going back to my college days, when I was doing communications, I didn't realize until that time that, Edison had tried to build something to talk to the dead. And so did Marconi, and so did Tesla. So it's actually kind of cool that people today are still trying. And, the one guy I do really respect and like on that show with the guy who has a museum in Vegas is Billy Tolley. He's the guy who does all the machines, and he brings in all the new equipment, and so I love him. He's great because he actually tries to say, hey, let's try this. And a lot of the stuff that he comes up with, it makes a lot of sense to me. So I really respect and like it.
Yeah. And they had another guest on. It was really a tragic story. I just remember this episode. The guy lost his daughter, and he built a device to, I guess, interpret things that he was getting, and it was so accurate. And then he ended up working for them. I don't remember the guy's name, but sad story, but something came out of it, I guess. Another research device. But I think that's what this guy does, is he builds these things, and he's always coming up with new devices and, pushing the limits of electronics, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool stuff. So what do you think the best way to gather evidence is if that was something that you're interested in?
Well, I think, honestly, with the way technology has jumped, tenfold from the time, and I tell people, we as Gen X went through the revolution of flip phones, no cell phone, flip phones, wall phones, all up to where we're at now and everything. And the technology, I think, is sped up so much that I think it's actually gone ahead of what humans can keep up with. I think technology, and I actually had a friend, I know I'm going off on a little tangent here, who we got into a talk about aliens one day. And he worked for the government for a while. And he was telling me, he said, Kevin, do you ever realize like what some of this technology, why we have a lot of this stuff? And then he laid everything out, potential stuff from the aliens. And I was like, I never thought of that, but it kind of makes sense. Like, you remember Star Trek, Kirk had the flip phone way back in the 70s when he used to call up, Spock, beam me up. Yeah, that was a flip phone.
Oh my gosh.
And we didn't have flip phones for another 20 years.
That's right. Remember on Star Trek, the transponders on their chest, and they just
Yes.
I mean, well, Gene Roddenberry was way ahead of his time, and who knows? If I seriously think he had some kind of download. He had some download stuff going on. There's no way some of the things that he wrote about and had predicted.
Yeah,
that's suspicious.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there was
the guy was a genius.
He was the same way.
Oh yeah.
If you're familiar with his work, he had a lot of stuff. What was his name? Clark. What was his name? Clark. What was his name? Oh gosh.
Drawing a blank.
Yeah, it's something Clark. He was an older guy with a bald head. I can't think of his name, but he was another Arthur C. Clarke.
Oh, yeah.
Arthur C. Clarke. Yeah, he was, he had a lot of interesting stuff too. But, so, that's what I always thought. And again, for me, I've captured EVPs on, as I said, the old tape recorders. I've captured them on a phone. I've captured them on an answering machine, believe it or not. That was kind of weird. And again, one of those ones that we don't have anymore because we don't have landlines, but it was an external answering machine with, once again, those little tapes.
Right.
And that was
little mini, because they were remember those little mini cassette tapes and you fill them up and you had to go buy another one and flip it over. And then you forgot all the messages that were, that didn't last. Luckily, that didn't last for too many years. Those were dumb.
Yeah, they were. And like I said, it was so annoying when they would get eaten in the middle of classes and you didn't know who called you.
Yeah, I remember that episode with remember Ross in Friends?
Oh yes, that's right.
The tape machine, and what was it? Rachel broke into his house, or somebody broke in. I can't remember the whole thing to erase the message. Yeah, that was our life.
Right. Exactly, and people don't understand that to this day. We actually had to do things like that.
We're from the Wayback Machine.
That's right, but we were on the coolest generation.
We are.
Everybody says
we still are.
Things were great. Yes, we are.
We still are. Yeah, that's so cool.
But yeah, I don't think there's any tried and true method. And again, like I said, I've captured pretty much anything on almost anything I've tried to use recording wise. So, and again, but I think a lot of it is me. So I think that's what it is. But for the amateur ghost hunter or the person who wants to do ghost hunting properly, I feel that you can pretty much use anything that will record, and you're going to be able to pick something up if the spirits want to let you know things.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel about just using your body as kind of a barometer for going into certain places?
Oh, absolutely. I've known some people in my lifetime that did that, and they were really good. It was almost as if they were possessed by that spirit. And one of the things that, and I'm sure you've gotten these things too, where people will say, oh, I saw, they'll pop up a message and, oh, something told me your energy and this and that. If you want a free reading, blah, blah, blah.
Oh,
it's just like, yeah, I'm not gonna clickbait that. But I've actually had people who said, and I've told them, I said, okay, if you're psychic, the one thing that you can tell me, if you tell me some obscure fact of my life that nobody would know, and I mean obscure, because I've actually known some people that were the real deal that told me something, there was no way that these people could have known this, and they told me, then that's how I challenge them. And if you give me something generic, I know you're full of it. But I've had some people tell me some really obscure things, and there's no way that these people know any of this. It's like they were remote viewing.
Yeah, and in the realm of that, different people work different ways, and so challenging someone to do I'm just speaking from, I do this for friends and on the side, and it's just something that I was gifted a long time ago, and so I would just like to say that we all kind of work differently, and so I might work differently than someone else, and so it is kind of hard to like challenge someone and say, okay, tell me what color my grandmother's favorite shoes were. Well, it doesn't really work that way, because that person is working as an intermediary between the person that has passed and the person that would like to receive information. And the way that I do it is all within the healing realm. Everything is in the light and for love and healing and generosity and help and that sort of thing. And so,
do you read auras?
What's that?
Do you read auras?
It's funny because I see them in my mind's eye, but I don't see them, so I can tell what kind of color someone might have around them. But it's not always accurate. So I say maybe not. Yeah, it's a work. It's a work in practice. Maybe it's just not one of my talents. But
so how do you go when you do a reading for a person? What do you do?
Well, I ground myself first thing, and I ask permission, and that's the biggest thing, is just protecting yourself and only doing things for healing and to help the person. And it's much like what you said in the beginning when we were talking about being respectful and like going into someone's house and asking permission and being respectful. It's kind of like going to a party. You go to a dinner party, you don't come in there all hot and heavy and say, hey, who are you? What was your occupation? What was your favorite thing to do in life? Like, it doesn't really work that way. Right. It's all about respect and kindness and working as a way to help the person heal through grief. So it works in the realm of grief recovery.
Okay.
More than anything. And those are my friends that we do that. So yeah, and I don't do any kind of anything dark or I don't get into all of that. It's so I don't know.
What do you mean? Everything's not a demon?
No, I've never encountered that.
That's another thing that drives me crazy about some of these shows. Yeah. They use the D word way too much.
That's true. That is true. I have seen that, and it's I think that might be Hollywood. A lot of it.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that. I do want to say I think there is evil in the world for sure.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And I don't know what it is. Is it people? I know there are definitely evil people in the world. But I don't really know that much about it, and so that gets into like religion and that sort of thing. And that's a whole nother podcast. But no, I think there is evil in the world for sure. I mean, in some of these hauntings, they might be, I don't know. How can I say that, I wasn't living in that house, but I think there are people that have been in really bad situations in some of these hauntings for sure.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that what personality you have in life, you have in death.
Yeah.
So if you're a good guy, you're going to be a good guy in death. If you're a jerk, you're going to be a jerk on the afterlife.
Oh, I think that definitely, it definitely carries over. Your personality is very similar. Maybe you're healing and doing all of those things, but I think you definitely carry it with you. It's like an old handbag.
Yes.
There was one podcaster, it's Jim Harold, actually, on the Paranormal podcast. He interviewed a Catholic priest one time. And after listening to that interview, I was a little frightened. But he said he said very emphatically, there is evil. And I can't even remember. That was several years ago. So it's probably not on his free episodes anymore, but it was a really interesting conversation. That's for sure. And it left me wondering like, well, maybe, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I actually I was on his show a couple years ago, Jim Hero.
Okay.
That was good. But yeah, I've actually listened to, you remember Art Bell?
I don't remember listening to him, but I know the name. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah,
what was he on?
He was the one from Area 51 that he had Coast to Coast.
Oh, I was thinking Coast to Coast. Okay, Coast to Coast.
He was the original Coast to Coast host. Well, there's a tongue twister. But he used to have his name was Malachi Martin, I believe, and he was a Catholic priest, and he had him on a couple shows, and oh my gosh, they would scare you because he talked about how he did exorcisms and this and that. He would talk about real evil, and also there's the what is his name? I've listened to him on a couple shows. The deliverance minister. I can't remember his name. He's really popular, and I can't think of his name. But he's another one that like if you listen to him, you kind of want to get religion if you don't have it already.
Right.
But he does talk about some of the cases he's been on and things that he's seen, and it's really scary.
Yeah, and and I think the one that I'm remembering is the one that Jim Harold did interview, and he was saying that if it's a true demonic possession that the Catholic Church actually does go in. He said it's very rare, extremely rare, but it does occur, and it's a lot of work to get them removed. That it takes years and years. It's not like it is on TV, but it's actually a very, very long process that takes a long time, and there's like a lot of lasting effects. So when I heard that interview, I was like, ooh, yeah, I think I'll just stay and do all the good things and be nice to people and not go down that rabbit hole. But it's interesting because you mentioned that the guy who does investigations out in Vegas, which we won't mention his name, but he has dived down that path several times, and it just makes me wonder if he's had any effects. And I think that his one of his cohorts did and left team, I think.
Yes, right. Yep. So absolutely.
I don't know about dabbling in that for sure, but who knows? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and that's another thing, and I'm glad you touched upon that, because that's one thing I think a lot of people. This is the one thing that I it's almost like a public service announcement, because I've had to counsel people on Ouija boards. And it's the same with investigations. Is you want to go and protect yourself. You want to have protection. You want to envision the light around you before you go into these places, because I've had attachments, and I was actually talking to a friend of mine a while ago who's also in the paranormal, and she was telling me she's not really sure if I have one now or not. But honestly, I never thought about it, but it would kind of make some sense to some of the things that go on with me and everything. But again, and I always do that when I leave a place. I'm always like, hey, you cannot follow me. Thank you for your time. You stay here. And they're like, they don't always listen. So you'll get the hitchhiker every once in a while. But I think a lot of people, like I said, when they get into this field, they need to know, you need to protect yourself. You can't leave yourself wide open, because there are entities out there that will say, oh, hey, look at this. This person's horrible, miserable, and I'm just going to jump in their body. I'm going to torment them. And I get off of that, and then I get all the energy I wanted.
Yeah, that's so true that you mentioned the hitchhiker. I'll come back to that, but I wanted to say that, yeah, that is one thing that I will not mess with is boards. No way. No. I have to say that I did that when I was a kid, and no. No. To each his own. Do what you want to do, but not for me. No thanks.
Yeah, it's bad, because I think what happens a lot of the time, and I have a friend of mine that I talk with on a fairly regular basis that, she's into the paranormal too, and everything. We talk about this. It seems like every Halloween there'll be some kid or some kids, plural, that will just take the Ouija board, go to the cemetery.
Oh my gosh.
and be like, oh, nothing's happening. And I said, yeah, until you get home. And then all of a sudden all hell breaks loose. And then you got to call somebody in to help you. And they don't understand. And like I said, I've actually had to counsel some people about using the Ouija board. And I actually touched upon it in my book. And they know it's that. And they told me, they were like, Kevin, we didn't use our name, but I know it's us. I said, well, what I tell you? I said, leave that stuff alone. And to this day, there's still a part of what they've done they've not told me. And I said, I know you haven't given me the whole story. I can tell. And I know that they won't give me the whole story, but I can, I know that they're doing that. And that's one of the good things about being a Virgo, is I'm a good lie detector.
That's yeah, that's good. I've known some Virgos that were good at that too. Very grounded. This hitchhiker phenomena is really interesting. And that is, I will call it a phenomena, not necessarily just with the paranormal, but maybe it is tied to the paranormal, because when I went to Phenomicon last fall, and I'm going again next year or this year, yay. But I went out to Skinwalker Ranch, and
oh, wow.
Yeah, I took the tour out there, actually got to walk onto the ranch, and some weird stuff happened while we were there. And they told us, this is a phenomena. It does happen to people. And so when I was sitting on the bus, I was just doing like this little grounding meditation that I always do. Like, nope, this little body is closed down. You are not coming near me. But I didn't have a hitchhiker, but apparently it happens to a lot of the crew and the ranch people that are on the property that work there. And it's a real phenomena.
Wow. That's another thing I totally forgot about that. That's another bucket list destination, is Skinwalker Ranch.
Oh yeah, you should go to Phenomicon. I think you still get tickets.
Where exactly is that?
It's in Utah. It's in September. It's September 3rd through the 6th. I got my tickets.
That's my birthday weekend.
Yeah.
I'm the 4th.
There you go.
I could splurge and give myself a birthday present. That'd be
the tickets
awesome.
are not that expensive. So worth it though. So much to do. I when I came home from that weekend last year, for 2 weeks I felt like I had entered the portal and I was still there.
Oh wow.
It was really cool. But yeah, no, it's all kinds of things. It's UAPs. It's everything about Skinwalkers. They have paranormal groups there. They have, and a lot of them I hadn't heard of. So they may have brought in new. They bring in new people. It was so worth it. But I'll probably be going every year.
It sounds like something.
Yeah,
that sounds like it's really cool.
Maybe I'll have a table here in a couple of years. We'll see. But it was really fun for sure. And they're always looking for speakers too. So hey, there's an idea. They do have like breakout rooms where you have authors come and do presentations. So they do that too. But
do you have the contact information?
It's just you can just research it on Google. It's Phenomicon, 2025.
Because that's one thing. Like I said, I never get asked to go do these things, and I never ask anybody to do them because it's just my schedule is crazy. But I could get away for like a weekend or something. I think I'd really enjoy that. That'd be kind of cool.
It's so much fun, and you make lots of new friends and get to talk to people, and it was really. It's super fun for sure. Yeah, these conferences are a lot of fun. I just went to the Bigfoot conference last weekend, met a friend there. Such a fun weekend. I mean, oh my gosh. But I will definitely have to check out like a Paracon maybe next year. That sounds really fun.
Yeah, because like I said, they're growing in popularity apparently, but they have like a big loop kind of events. What I'm saying, like a lot of the quote unquote bigger ones always have the same people, and they'll notice that when their posters come out. And they've all been on these shows.
Yeah. Right. Maybe the smaller ones are the way to go. Less, where they're not the major people, but you have like maybe a smaller one and different speakers.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe that's the way to do it. You hit some of the smaller ones because they're like all over the place. Estes Park, last weekend, the same weekend I went to the Nebraska conference. Estes Park had a Bigfoot conference. It's like Estes Park. Well, darn it. I didn't know that was going to be. It's like right down the road from me, but not down the road, but in the same state. But yeah, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, these conferences are fun, folks. If you ever get, if you get a chance to go check them out, they are a great way to network, to meet people, to learn more about whatever topic you're interested in, do excursions, just to kind of build a community. Because I firmly believe that as we get older, we, for some reason, sometimes our friends list might, I don't know. I feel like our friends list contracts as we get older because we get so busy, or, we get diverted with other things. And so it's a really great way to socialize and to, to build a community that is interested in the same things that you are. And if you want to be weird, be weird. I love it. I told my mom the other day, I was like, yeah, she's like, where were you last weekend? I'm like, I went to a Bigfoot conference. She's like, what? I'm like, I said, yeah, Mom, I'm getting older. I'm getting weird the older I get. And it's all good. Yeah. So we'll go ahead and land this boat, or dock the boat. And where can people find your book and tell us about your book?
Okay, they can find it at ozarkmountain.com, ozarkmtn.com. That's my publishing company that actually publishes my book. They can find it on Amazon. They can find it on pretty much anywhere that you can sell book, like barnesandnobles.com, I think, has it, but Amazon is usually pretty popular for that. And if anybody would like to reach out and talk to me about ghosts, spirits, paranormal, or just anything else, Gen X stuff, whatever, they can contact me at KKILLEN, B as in boy, T as in Tom, Killen BT at gmail.com. And I love talking to people. I love hearing from people, and there's always plenty to talk about. So feel free to drop me a line. If that doesn't work for you, you can get on my Instagram account, which is IrishKev, IRISHKEV 7147. And those are pretty much the platforms that I use. I mean, I am on Facebook, but like I said, if you just type in Facebook Kevin Killen, I think it says Kevin Killen author. So because there's actually a lot of Kevin Killens from Ireland, so they can find me through that. But those are the main places you can find me.
Do you have any other books planned for the next one?
Yes, I'm actually working on a part 2 to this book, Ghosts in Me. I'm working on part 2 right now, and that explores from the time I got published until the time to right now. And I actually, excuse me, I have a really cool near-death experience. I kind of frames everything, but it covers a lot of things about the publishing industry, what to expect, what not to expect, people I've met in this field since I got in it. Just a plethora of things, but that's going to be my next one, and hopefully it'll be done very shortly.
Nice. Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, folks, if you want to get together with Kevin and talk about tapes that get tangled in your car and unfolding paper maps and maybe some ghosts, then check him out. And thank you, Kevin, so much for coming on and sharing your experiences. And I look forward to finishing up your book and checking out your next one. And
awesome. Thank you for having me, Monica. This was a blast.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin. Hey, thanks for listening to another great episode. Be sure and like, share, or follow this podcast by leaving a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen. If you have an experience you'd like to share, be sure and reach out to verbalecho@gmail.com. If you know someone who'd like to tell their story, please send them our way. I want to talk to them. No guardrails. Have a great week, friends. See you in the next episode.